Okay, we're switching back to the offense. I think Florida's run game is going to be lethal this year. Here's why.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day, we are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. Happy Wednesday. I'm Brandon Olson. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI. And like I said, I think the Florida Gators run game in 2025 is going to be absolutely lethal. And part of it's a scheme, part of it's the personnel. We're going to start with the personnel first. The Florida Gators are returning 4 out of their 5 starting offensive linemen. The only one gone is Brandon Crenshaw-Dickson. Bringing back Austin Barber on the left side, bringing back Najee Harris on the left side, bringing back Jake Slaughter at center, and bringing back Damian George at right guard. That kind of continuity is huge. Chemistry should be huge. I know I say this all the time. I'm going to continue saying it because I don't think enough people actually respect the idea of it, that continuity on the offensive line and chemistry on the offensive line is more important than playing the best players, honestly. This is one of the only positions where I say that, but having offensive linemen who know how to play off of one another, who know how to combo block with one another, that's huge. Hell, we had Hayden Hansen here. I want to say it was 2023, that season, where he came on the show every week, as he does every week during the season. And he came on the show in 2023, and he's like, yeah, some guys I just have better chemistry with at right tackle, right? Specifically, right tackle we were talking about. But he's like, hey, some guys I just have better chemistry with. Not a knock on anybody, not an insult with, but chemistry matters when you're blocking. It does. Knowing when to pass someone off matters. And the way that you know how to do that is with experience playing together. Having 4 out of your 5 returning starting offensive linemen, huge. There's expected to be a right tackle battle between what we can assume will be Bryce Lovett, Devin Manuel, and Caden Jones. I think Bryce Lovett and Caden Jones will be the top 2 really going at it. But it's supposed to be an open competition at right tackle, right? I don't think there will be a competition at right guard. I think everything else, you're just trying to figure out who the backup is. So having a whole offseason with 4 out of these 5 guys, first off, healthy and available is huge. Okay. This is the first time we've seen that too, because in 2023, Jake Slaughter started almost the entire season at center, right? However, this spring, Kingsley Aguakin was the center. Kingsley Aguakin was the starting center, and Kingsley got hurt, I want to say it was less than a week before the Utah game to open the 2023 season. That's when he lost Kingsley in 2023. So that sucked. And while that sucked, and look, it didn't suck because Jake Slaughter started. It sucked because we spent the entire spring with Kingsley Aguakin as a starter. And then you had to go, hey, different guy going in at one of the most important positions on the line, and maybe the most important position on the line in terms of continuity of who's actually there, right? He has to play alongside 2 players, and he has to handle all the calls and all of that, which a very inexperienced Jake Slaughter in 2023 was tough to ask for. And then he was also constantly in and out of the lineup because Kingsley was constantly in and out of the lineup. So that sucked. In 2024, you brought back your left tackle in Austin Barber. You brought back your center in Jake Slaughter. And you brought back Damian George, but he was making a position change. He was going from right tackle to right guard. You had a transfer in at right tackle. So as good as Brandon Crenshaw-Dickson was, he came in. There was no chemistry there at the start. And then at left guard, you had Najee Harris, very young player, still learning, trial by fire kind of thing. So this is the first offseason where you go, hey, who's the left tackle? It's Austin Barber. Who's the left guard? It's Najee Harris. Who's the center? It's Jake Slaughter. Who's the right guard? It's Damian George. The only thing where you go, who's the right tackle, and you don't know who it is that right tackle spot. Everything else, you know who's expected to start. This is the first offseason we've had in a long time as Florida Gators fans where we know most of our offensive line. That continuity going to be huge for the run game and the passing game as well, obviously. Then you look at who's running the football. Jadan Baugh, Jacoby Jackson, two monsters there, right? I mean, we saw Jadan Baugh as a true freshman be the most productive back on the roster, right? Not just in terms of carries, but in touchdowns. He was tied with Jacoby Jackson. They both had 7, despite Montrell Johnson also being there, having 6. Those two combined for 14. So you got Jadan Baugh back, who led the team last year in touches or carries and rushing yards, and tied for the lead with touchdowns. You have Jacoby Jackson back, who averaged 5.5 yards per carry. Got both of those guys back as your two main backs. They're going to be the leaders there. Then you've got Treon Webb coming back once he's fully healthy, which we'll see what that really looks like. Spring ball starts tomorrow, so we'll really see how that looks. And then you've got Kaden Daniels back as well, KD Daniels, who absolute monster. I've been very open about that. Like, I think that KD Daniels is just a phenomenal back. If we're being honest, I just think he's really freaking good. I think he's got a ton of talent. I think his vision is next level. And now that he's had a full year, and by the time the season rolls around, a year and a half in the weight room, I think that'll be huge for him as well. So, like, that 4 deep at running back, I don't know how much Treon or KD are truly going to play, but I can tell you that in a sport that is very next man up mentality, in the running back room, if any injuries were to happen, I do think that a lot of us can go, okay, well, the next man up is still going to be really good. Might not be as good as Jadan Baugh, might not be as good as Jacoby Jackson, still going to be really good, okay? And I do think that, Treon has receiving ability that we haven't seen at Florida. I think you look at his high school film, you see him do that. I think that you look at KD's high school film, you see the explosive runs, and I'm not going to forget the 2-lane play that was just, I mean, can't even tell you what the hell happened on that 2-lane play, where he picked up the fumble and scored a touchdown. It was just chaos there. So I'm not going to be like, oh, look at that dynamic playmaking ability. That was just pure chaos there. If I'm not mistaken, like a 2-lane safety was like celebrating during the play, not realizing that KD Daniels had it and was running. So it was chaos, but his vision, next level. Very much looking forward to seeing him actually play and be healthy this whole season. There's a ton of talent in that running back room. Then we've got the scheme that is, I think, going to change a bit. I think the run game is going to change a little bit schematically. We'll talk about that when we get back with Locked On Gators. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Join the Trademaster program today, which is free at supplyhouse.com/TM, and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free, right, in the podcast and on YouTube. And like I said, I think that the Florida Gators run game gonna change at least a little bit schematically. Okay, not a ton, but I do think that this line, with honestly whoever is going to be starting at right tackle, is going to be better suited than last year to open up the run scheme. And a big part of that, simply put, Brandon Crenshaw-Dickson. Look, and I don't mean to be dismissive of him at all. I think that Brandon Crenshaw-Dickson in his 1 year at Florida was great. Okay? I think that he put out fantastic film. He's going to get drafted probably early day 3 is when I think it'll happen. I think it would be higher, but he's somewhat athletically limited. Okay? That's what it is. Like he's somewhat athletically limited. And I think that how athletically limited Brandon Crenshaw-Dickson was limited what Florida could do in the run game a little bit. I don't think that he, was horrible. I don't think he's completely unathletic. However, I do think that some of the run game was limited because of him. I don't think so much the wide zone game. I don't think that mattered too much. Just because I think he can handle those. But one thing that Florida has loved to do, and that Billy Napier has loved to do throughout his career, and that we've seen Florida kind of introduce a little bit here and there, is GT counter. Okay, GT counter is, let's say it's going to the left, since we're talking about the right guard, right tackle situation. You've got your center blocks to the right, your left guard blocks to the right, your left tackle blocks to the right. They're all blocking down. Your right guard and your right tackle pull behind the offensive line. We'll break the whiteboard out one of these days for it. But your right guard and your right tackle pull behind the offensive line to the left, and they essentially become lead blockers for your running back, who takes the snap, takes the handoff, and then stutter step to the right. Well, counter step is what it's called. Counter step to the right, and then goes to the left. And then he's got 2 lead blockers there. Okay. But if your offensive linemen are not athletic enough to pull across, you can't run GT counter. Okay. And that is something that, again, we've seen Florida do it a lot. It was Tennessee 2023. I think we saw Florida break it out quite a few times. We saw them do it a few times, mostly against like Kentucky in 2024. They did it, which makes a lot of sense. Kentucky didn't have a super athletic defensive line, so it's not like you were too concerned with them coming through and blowing the play up if your offensive line didn't get there in time. I would expect to see a bit more tackle pulls, we'll say. You call it dart. But I would expect to see more plays where you have the tackle moving out in space, moving out and honestly, I was going to say moving out, pulling behind, but also on a swing screen or swing pass. You could see the right tackle pull across, especially if it's a Caden Jones. I think Caden Jones has a ton of athleticism that really opens up your run game schematically. He might not be the best guy that you have, but he opens up things for you schematically there. And all of that is on top of having Hayden Hansen back, who I didn't even mention the personnel group, but having him back, he's going to be able to move around. We saw GY counter a lot, which is for, again, you know how GT counter is the right guard and the right tackle pull across when the left side of the line blocks to the right guard, right tackle pull. Instead of that, it's right guard pulls and tight end pulls. We saw that a lot against Tennessee in 2023. We saw that a lot against multiple teams in 2024. That's something that Florida likes to go to when they go with gap-based blocking schemes. And then, of course, when we talk about the run scheme, I'm gonna say this, and I'm sure there's gonna be people that are annoyed with it, but tough cookies. You have a healthy DJ Lagway, okay? I would expect to see designed quarterback runs and the option, whether it's just straight up zone read or if it's with an RPO attached, whatever it is, I expect to see the option. Okay. That does not mean he has to get hit. He has to get hurt. Doesn't mean that. I mean, hell, he got hurt last year sliding or diving. Wasn't even getting hit. So I do think that that's not as much a concern for me. He's also built like a tank. And I will say, I don't care for anybody that may be crying in the comments. Like you're probably typing it already. You can't have DJ Lagway run. I don't care about any of that. Genuinely, doesn't matter to me. If you have a mobile quarterback and you have a guy that could just, again, I'm not saying he's a running quarterback, but you have a guy that can run and you don't utilize it at all, you're an idiot. Like that's just how we're like, if you have a quarterback that can run and you don't use it at all, you're failing as a coach. Again, I'm not saying you got to run him 10 times a game. I'm not saying anything like that, but you run the option 5 times. If you got a light box, you can run QB blast. Like you can open things up, especially for everybody that goes, oh, Florida should go 5 wide. For everybody that does that, for everybody that goes, Florida's going 5 wide here, you need to go 5 wide. If you go 5 wide and you don't include a quarterback designed run game in your strategy, you're especially an idiot. Because if you go 5 wide, odds are you're getting a light box. I mean, look at Dan Mullen 2020. They had success running that with Kyle freaking Trask. You need to see it. It should happen. It should be a part of your game. Okay? Just gonna be completely honest. Like that should be again, doesn't have to be a ton. He doesn't need 10% of your carries. He doesn't need any of that. But using him as a rush threat, one, helps your offense. Because if he's even just threatening to take the ball and run, that edge defender is no longer defending the run when you hand it to a running back. 2022, that's one of the reasons Florida's run game is so damn explosive, was that Anthony Richardson was always a threat to keep the ball. And so if he's a threat to keep the ball, that means the defense is paying attention to him. He just sells that play fake a little more, and you're looking at a damn good run game. There's some other things that I think are going to play an impact in the run game. We'll talk about that when we get back with Locked On Gators. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day, we are available daily and free reviews of the podcast and on YouTube. To wrap up today's episode of Locked On Gators, Tre Wilson. Yes, Tre Wilson is healthy, and based on the clips that we've seen from spring workouts and all that stuff, Tre Wilson looks more built than usual, or more built than previously. I don't want to say he looks like insanely swole at all, but he looks a bit thicker than he looked previously, which will help him. He looked very skinny, and I just hope that that doesn't impact his movement at all. But he's healthy. He's supposed to be more of a full-time slot receiver this year. Hopefully, that means that we see him also be part of, or be an extension of, the run game again. We saw that a lot when he was a true freshman in 2024 or 2023. Sorry, when he was a true freshman, he was getting a ton of these jet sweeps, pop passes, whatever it may be. First off, that's part of the run game. Okay, like I don't care that he's technically popping the ball forward, and so it's technically a pass. It's part of the run game. Okay, so there's that. That's part of the run game. Hopefully, we see some reverses to him. Hopefully, we see him be involved in the run game, and also something that we saw in 2023 that I don't think we saw him do in 2024 before he got shut down was in 2023, we saw him play a little bit in the backfield. Could see more of that. With Tre, it's like, hey, give me 1 to 2 carries per game. 1 to 2 carries per game. And I think that's enough of a threat that you can then say, hey, we're going to run the motion and hand it to the running back. But the defense eyes could be looking like, if you run that little motion, let's just take a second and hypothetically think about this scenario, right? Let's look at the scenario of he runs that jet sweep, right? You do that first quarter. He runs a sweep. You give him the ball. He takes off. I don't care how many yards you gain. You did it. And that means that it's a threat to do, right? So you hand it to Tre Wilson, pop it to Tre Wilson, whatever. Don't care how many yards you get. Second quarter. You do that. And he fakes the pop to Tre, hands it to Jadan Baugh. Great. Third quarter. You can run that same motion and attach an option to it. Now he's reading that backside defensive end, whatever the backside defensive end does. DJ Lagway makes the read. He can take off running. He can hand it off. You do that and attach, attach a receiver running a screen or a receiver running a slant. You can attach that and build onto that as well. There's a lot you can do by just including Tre Wilson in the run game a little bit. And I'm not saying he needs 4 carries a game. 1 to 2. Just make sure he's a threat. We'll say behind the line touches, fine. So we don't have to say carries, even though they're pop passes. That. I do think that in 2025, you will also see more Wildcat. Jadan Baugh did it a bit last year. I think you could see them do it again this year as a way to just get the ball in his hands. And also, you could say, hey, we're going to put Jadan Baugh and Jacoby Jackson on the field at the same time. Jadan Baugh running the Wildcat read option. Let him make the read. Just you force defenses to prepare for it. There's a lot that you can do with the current roster that you have. I think right now, again, this is a thing that I've been talking about. Like I'm gonna hype up the roster, okay? I'm gonna hype up the roster all summer and the rest of spring, and I'm gonna tell you what they can do. I'm not trying to be a sunshine pumper, okay? I'm not trying to be a believer. I'm not trying to do that. What I am doing is telling you that they keep up this roster building process that has been fantastic, okay? They've gone and they've gotten elite athletes at every level of offense and defense. They've done a ton there. They've built up that offense and that defense, and they've just got athletes throughout. And I think that the roster is fantastic. Like, also, they're going to be really good at throwing the deep ball this year, right? That is the most complementary thing you can have. A good deep passing attack with a run game. Because if your run game is working, that's going to open up the deep shot. If your deep shot's working, that's going to open up the run game. There's so much that's going to go into this that they can climb and build off each other, and they can develop and they can get better and better as you go on throughout the season. There's so much there that I just, for the love of God, need this coaching staff to put things together. I just need them to be able to execute. Execute's a bad word because that implies the offense, like the players themselves. I need this coaching staff to do their job, put the players in position to succeed. Because I think they've built a really good team. Great team. College football playoff caliber team. I've said that multiple times. It's time for coaching to catch up to the talent. You've got a Tre Wilson. Use him in the run game. You've got DJ Lagway. Use him in the run game. You've got an offensive line that has chemistry with one new guy coming in, and he's going to be more athletic. I don't care who you have at right tackle. He's going to be more athletic than Brandon Crenshaw-Dixon. Because everybody else at right tackle, potentially, is more athletic than Brandon Crenshaw-Dixon. You've got a recipe for success in the run game. Got to make it happen. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day, we are available daily and free every single podcast and on YouTube. We'll be back tomorrow. Actually, we'll be back tonight after Florida hopefully beats Alabama in basketball. And then we'll be back tomorrow. Spring ball starts tomorrow as well. It's a fun time. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olson. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI, and I'll see you all next time.